Morning after the fire, an eclipse started, so there wouldn't be much sun for a while. While sleeping that night, I'd planned out a new house, try to make something a bit nicer than what I had before. In the meantime, I had some food and a beer, and I had to repair one of my batteries which had broken down. There was a bunch of stuff to do before I could get going on the new house. Being a bit overwhelmed, I also decided to smoke a joint before starting. I finished out the mining I had planned, just to expand the storeroom a little more. I thought about filling in the one spot, which was a potential risk for whatever critters are underground. For the moment I let it go. I headed on out and harvested a bunch of that ambrosia I'd seen while giving those tribal people the business the other day. So I got all that hauled. While out there, I'd noticed a raccoon laid out dead, still pretty fresh. Thought maybe I could get some meat off it at some point. Eventually I got back inside, sat down for a meal. Decided to play a little bit of chess with myself once again. I was getting tired of tossing horseshoes for the minute. After that, felt like a full day since I didn't see the sun. I was off to bed. During the night, a pleasant feeling settled over me. Around about 8 in the morning, the eclipse ended. When I got up, I decided to make a few joints. I had a whole bunch of smoke leaf I needed to get through. Took a break for some food at some point, and my hops came up, ready to be plucked as well. I worked on that. I worked on the smoke leaf joints, and I decided to make some wort so I could get a little more beer going here, being that was one of my favorite pastimes, having a beer. While filling the fermenting barrel, some jerks, those pirates again, decided to come on in and attack me. Trying to spare some traps, I grabbed my gun and ran on out as quick as I could. Didn't seem like there was much hope, but I made Hamlet stay inside the base. Didn't want him to get beat up by these guys. I took one down with the rifle. The second one went down on my trap, and the other two decided they were going to run away. They didn't get too far. I got one of them almost right away. The other fella was running pretty fast. I'd had a hell of a stressful couple days. And nonetheless, I got him filled full of holes before he got too far away for me to be worried about him. After that, I decided to get the weapons hauled in. Those dead guys had left. One of them was still alive. I decided I was going to give him the business proper. He was wearing some pretty shoddy clothes, so I wasn't even going to bother trying to salvage them. It wouldn't be worth much. I had too much going on to worry about at the minute. So I headed on over, beat him dead with my rifle, and I plan to get him hauled into a grave at some point here. After that, I got one of those guys hauled in to my current dead body pile, and then I was off to bed for the night. I'd had enough for one day. When I next woke up, it was about 3 a.m. Had a little bit of food. Decided to get the other guys dealt with. For the minute, I was just stacking them all up with the chunks and the metal slag. Something that had to be done eventually, but this has saved me a little time. I rebuilt my trap. Disassembled my torch I was using for mining. Then I decided to repair my walls where they'd been damaged. Those jerks were attacking. A beer felt in order after that, followed by a little smoke leaf. Then I was back to making more joints. I still had a ton of smoke leaf to get through. I worked on that for a while. While doing so, a chunk of spacecraft fell out of the sky. I decided to let it lay for the minute. And I focused on making joints, trying to tidy up my little work area a bit. It was rather disgusting as it was. I went back to Smoke Leaf, and then some more spacecraft chunks fell out of the sky. Something big must have broken up in space for all this to be going down. I made Smoke Leafs most of the day, and it was off to bed. While sleeping, a bunch of pemmican fell out of the sky. And that was pretty useful. It saved me having to make more. It also occurred to me there was still a bunch of ambrosia out there, ripe for the plucking. Since I'd lost my last stash, I decided to get on top of those things. I ran out to haul that pemmican in, and got it all scooped up and brought back, lickety-split. Then I decided to sit down for a beer, because why wouldn't you if you had them? A little bit of relaxation was definitely in order by then. After that, I got the hops replanted finally, and then I ran on out to deal with that ambrosia situation. Felt like one more extra thing to deal with. I also found some medicine right by where I was harvesting ambrosia, so I thought I'd take that in as well. Wouldn't hurt to have a few extra. I got back inside just in the nick of time. A couple real angry wargs showed up, trying to give me some grief. I grabbed my rifle, went out to see if I could keep them from setting off my traps again. I didn't have a lot of steel around. I got one shot, one kill. The other was wounded pretty bad. I decided to face him down, and I ended up getting him before he got to me. Decided they'd make some good meat, but at the minute I just didn't have any storage for them, so they were going to have to lay. Had a little bit of potatoes ready, but I wasn't able to harvest it well. No doubt in part to being a little bit stoned. I made some smoke leaves and I was off to bed again. While sleeping, some fella fell down right near my house. Pete was his name, and he was pretty hostile. He had some decent gear, not the best but not the worst. So, in the end, I decided I'd had enough. Decided to put him right out of my misery. And gave him the business. And I got him stuck right into a grave. And then I got his clothes picked up, so they wouldn't get any worse than they already were. I was off to bed again after that, having had my sleep interrupted. Once again, while sleeping, another transport pod came down. This fella's name was House. I didn't know what to do here. I just decided to let him lay and let nature take its course. I'd helped enough people out. In the morning, I put on that coat that fella Pete had been wearing. I decided I wasn't going to wear it for too long, though. It had a nice look, but I think my other one was nicer, so I switched back. I was working on the smoke leaf plants in the ground. Then I got back to making joints, trying to get that project wrapped up. My beer was fermented by then. That was welcome. I was getting quite the stockpile of beer going. I was happy about it as I sat down for a meal, made a smoke leaf joint, and then decided to toss some horseshoes. That was a good time, but there was work to do, so I made another joint, and then I was off to bed. Upon waking, it was about 4 a.m. Little pemmican was in order once again. I did decide to close up that spot in my storage room, lest some creatures come bursting out of the ground. I got that covered over with a nice stone wall, since I'm done building wooden walls. So I made joints, had a beer. While making joints, another transport pod came crashing down. Lilith was her name. She was not a fan of mine. Pretty ornery type, pretty well injured. Once again, I decided to let nature take its course as I was finally almost done making all these smoke leaf joints. Hopefully at some point I could get some cash. My hops were coming up again, so I had to pluck them. And then I decided I might as well make beer right away, since I had so much available. I made one more joint. I got the wort I just made put into the fermenting barrel, and it was back to joints. Only a few left. So I felt good. So I had a little meal, made the last couple of them. Then I decided some cleaning really needed to be done once again. Oh, the mess around here just never ended. Now I was back to the proper business, what I've been meaning to get to, making some stone blocks so I could rebuild my home. I was planning a fancy home, hopefully similar to what I had on Earth. So I made some blocks and then I was off to bed. I woke up about 4 a.m. once again, had some food. Then I decided I'd better bury those bodies I had laying around. They were starting to stink up the place. Once that was done, I was off, had a beer, and did some relaxing. There was a few bodies left, so I had to get to them. It didn't take long. I dug a bunch more graves because I figured I was going to need them the way things went around here. I dug up the old graves I had in the spot I didn't want them anymore. Had to get those people buried as well. A bunch of dirty old skeletons, some of them naked, some of them not. First I decided to deconstruct all these graves so they weren't laying around. And I got to work burying those people. Stinky old worm crawling things. It took a little while because it was a bunch of walking around right across my homestead area. After that it was back to making some blocks out of stone so I'd have some material to rebuild my house. And then I decided to get going on that. There was plenty of granite. After starting it, I went off to bed. Woke up about 4 a.m. once again. It was pemmican, back to building granite walls. It's a sturdy rock. I planted some ACs where my cooler was going to be. Keep all my food nice and cold. For now, I built my first AC. Made sure to shut it off. Didn't want it wasting power. The walls didn't take too long to go up. Well, I wasn't sitting on a lot of steel, which is what I wanted to make my outside doors out of. So I had to do some mining. So I planned some of that. Enough to get me through a few doors. I mined. I carried it in and made doors. I did some more mining. Started on my roofs. Didn't finish though, since there was more blocks that needed to be built. Fortunately, there was stone chunks laying everywhere to make blocks from. Started my inside walls out of marble and decided to take a break and throw some horseshoes. That felt good. At that point, lightning and thunder started, but there wasn't much rain going on. I worked on walls for a while more, and it was back to bed. It was hard to sleep that night with the lightning and the thunder raging, but I made do. And the next morning, 5 a.m., had a little food, and started building those walls for the inside of the place. I had a bunch of lights I'd taken from some bandit camps, so I'm getting them set up around. Some critters had killed themselves on my traps, of course. I had to get them hauled in, at least put out of the way so I could get my traps rebuilt. Those wargs I'd intended to butcher ended up going to rot. I was sitting on a fair amount of meat from the cow invasion, so I wasn't worried about it. Had a beer, smoked a joint. Somebody called me prisoner rescue or something. I told them I wasn't interested. Too much work to do. I'm making my inside doors out of stone. That was just fine. Make a nice look. And took a break once in a while from building a new homestead. Have a little bit of food. Plant some vents. Keep good airflow. Keep my heat and AC working well. Periodically I had to stop to do more mining. So, worked on that. Worked on it like a dog actually. Kept myself awake longer than I should have. But there was so much work to do. I hauled in the steel, much as I could carry. I was off to bed. While sleeping, a whole bunch of people, 9 of them, showed up. Decided they were going to try and give me some real business. They didn't give me any time to think about it. didn't think there was any way I was going to be able to save my traps against this many people. Plus, I didn't know which way they'd come at me. So I just took a guess. Ended up running out to my outside door, waiting on them to show up. Only a couple of them went the other way, so it worked out. I stood ready. As soon as I could, started shooting. They didn't have much armor. I really didn't have much for weapons, so I wasn't terribly worried. As long as they couldn't get inside anyway. Two of them went down on my traps on the other side of the homestead. Some of them started bashing on my doors. One of them went down on my traps again. Then the rest of them, there was only 3 left standing, decided to take off. I made another run at them all. I wish I could get them all. I'm sick of these suckers showing up causing me problems. And I got one of them. The other 2 had too much of a head start on me, so they got away. I was going to need all kinds of steel to get this stuff rebuilt. Didn't want to leave myself terribly unprotected. A couple of the people had survived. I was going to have to deal with that, which was unfortunate. My anger was starting to fade. But business is business. They knew what they were getting into showing up around here. I hauled some ambrosia one of them people dropped, picked up some food. I was back to bed, seeing as I didn't get much sleep in the first place. When I woke up, got some silver picked up that one of those people had left on the ground. And I started hauling their bodies, getting them put in the graves. Had to stop and eat despite my loss of appetite. It's best to keep my energy up here. Another beer was in order after that. A little bit of relaxation. And I decided a bunch more graves were going to be needed as well. Mostly because so many people were showing up so eager to die around here. I got a few graves dug. Buried some of the people. Once again, it was back to bed. My days are going fast. And when I woke up, I finished all the roofs of my new home. That didn't take terribly long. Then I finished digging the rest of the graves I had planned. There were still a few people that needed burying. I left the cherry tree in the graveyard. I thought it was a nice touch. Some food was in order after that. I just kept focusing on my walls and my new structure. This home would be the nicest one I'd had yet, as long as I didn't screw it up. Got as much of that done as I could for the minute. Got another fella buried. Started taking apart my old work area. I was going to have to move all that stuff in, so I planned out where I'd put it. Stopped to build a little bit of walls. More vents were in order as well, just to keep the airflow going. And I got my table, my chest table, some of the basics set up. Be nice to have a place to sit. Some woman named Taper was walking by at that point. She didn't seem hostile. I didn't have a problem with her, so I let her walk on by without incident. My batteries needed to be moved, so I got to that business. Also the lamps. I wanted my place to be well lit. My big fancy statue I'd gotten, taking out that little bandit camp, came in handy. Always makes a room feel nice. And once again, it was back to bed. I went down early, being that I was so tired. Running like a dog, working like a slave here. I kept my fire lit, even though it was inside my new house. Decided to make a little bit of pemmican, as my reserves were getting low. But I still had a bunch sitting in my workroom. My new freezer area was up and running, so now I had plenty of space to store any kind of food or dead animals I wanted to eat later. And that was nice. Worked on my bedroom, some lighting, and then I decided to take a walk around. I got near the cemetery, turned around quick though. I don't like the looks of that. A lot of bad memories here already. But I was going to try and make it a nice home. Be happy here for a little while. At least till I can figure out some research subjects, get myself equipped to move on. Decided some ACs were in order too. I took down a few of my new walls. All the old power conduit, I ripped that out. Did some repairs, the outside of the homestead. Decided I was going to rip down my old work area. There was lots of steel there, and that would come in very handy. So I ripped down walls, took the roofs down, using the steel all along so there wouldn't be a whole bunch of it sitting around. I didn't get too far. It was time to get back to bed. I was right tired. While sleeping, transport pod came down. Another person who was real hostile to me. She's wearing some reasonably nice clothes though. Well, she was going to be like that. Well, then I was going to be like this. So I ran on out, stripped her down. Felt a little bit like a pervert in the process. But I wasn't intending anything other than to see her pass away. And maybe she'll get up. I needed to make a spot in my bedroom for an air conditioner. So I mined out some of that old stone wall that was there. Continued ripping down the work area, disassembling stuff. And it was fortunate that thing is made out of steel, because I still needed a bunch of traps, ACs, heaters, vents, you name it. Finally got the walls down. I was off to bed. Hamlet was helping out, carrying stuff around. All in all, I was feeling pretty decent. Still was quite a few traps that needed to be worked on. I did not think I had enough steel around. And when I woke up, I had myself a little meal. I had a rotten rat in my freezer. Of course, my plants were coming due again because the work never ends. So I plucked a bunch of hops, smoke leaves best I could. I wasn't doing the best. I was tired, stressed yet. And I got it all put away. And once again, it was back to bed. 11 p.m. Some beer came due when I woke up about 4 a.m. And that was great. A little bit of pemmican was in order, as I was feeling rather hungry. And I was back to dealing with my plants at that point. There was potatoes, a little bit of smoke leaf, all kinds of stuff to do. I took a break for some beer. I got back to replanting. Someone called me interested in peace talks once again, but I brushed them off. They weren't having much luck assaulting me. That's probably why they're calling for peace. There was still a fair amount of work to do on my home, but I decided to start on the kitchen. Got a butcher table built. Set up my stone chopping table. I sat by the embers of my old fire having a beer, watching them glow red. Turkey had killed itself on one of the traps I just rebuilt. That's a curse and a blessing. It's free meat, but it's more work once again, more steel. It's finally getting close to having all my plants back in the ground. That sure took forever, but I got it done. Then I decided to train Hamlet a bit. Seemed like he'd stopped picking stuff up and helping me out. I ripped up some more floors, and once again, I was off to bed. 4 a.m. wake up time once again. A little bit of food. Decided to butcher up all the creatures I had laying around. So I worked on that. Felt bad butchering them dogs I'd let die. But that was one heck of a miserable time for me, so there wasn't much I could have done. I got all the creatures butchered. Nabbed a little bit of steel from the floor. Had a bunch more in storage, so I got another trap built. Security was coming back together slowly. Certainly not as fast as I'd like. But peeling up floors and building traps pretty much became my day, trying not to step on existing traps as I was building them. I was about out of floor space, but there was some left. Got all the stuff moved from the old freezer to the new. Decided I didn't need two of these things going. I still didn't have my actual freezer units up and running. I had to build some power lines for that to happen. But I started working on it. Disassembled the old freezer unit just to get some more steel components. I built myself a proper stove once again, since the last one had burnt up. And then I decided I'd toss some horseshoes to chill out for a bit. After that, back to peeling up floors. Hamlet was happy to help with the hauling of stuff. I took some of that steel down, grabbed a little more. Then I was off to bed. I didn't even have it in me that night to rebuild that trap. So I woke up. Once again, it was pemmican on the menu. I finally got back to building that final trap down the south side of the base. It felt good to have that in place. I moved my horseshoe pin, make it a little more usable. There's still a few traps yet to build over on the west side. So I got to that before I didn't have enough steel. Had to peel up more floors to make it happen. It didn't take long though. I got the last trap rebuilt and security was officially back until that turkey stepped on one of my southern traps. I butchered it up right away. Peeled up some more floors. Got to rebuilding a trap before I realized I'd missed a power cable. All this time all my food was going to rot. That was most unfortunate. Took me a minute to figure out where that cable was, seeing as it was not obvious. Once I considered my power layout, I found the problem straight away. Decided to focus on that immediately, and that solved the freezer problem. I was putting my smoke leaf and my hops in there for the minute, so they wouldn't go bad. I was peeling up the last of the floor. Some silk fell out of the sky. I decided that'd be useful. I could make a fancy shirt or something out of that. I grabbed it right away, lest it get rotten and gross. And I ran on inside with it. My storage area sure was filling up fast. Had some potatoes and hops come due about that time, so I plucked them a bit. But it was bedtime once again, so I went and laid down. 4 a.m. wake up time yet again. Was back to dealing with those hops. Hamlet, good boy that he is, running things inside for me. It's great to have a useful companion around. I wish Harley had made it. I was contemplating that while I played chess with myself. Then there was more smoke leaf to pull out of the ground, and then smoke leaf and hops to plant. I was playing in a little work garage type area off on the north side of the new house, so I did some mining, but it occurred to me quickly I was going to need a bunch more steel. I spent most of the day just mining away. It got too dark to work. I hauled in what I could after that. And once again, I was back to bed. Hamlet snoring away softly next to me. Things were really starting to come together here. I was feeling pretty inspired as I slept. I heard some critters screeching in the night. Some wolf had killed something, I think. I thought for sure one of my traps had been tripped, but fortunately this time it wasn't. Steel was certainly in short supply. While mining, a good feeling came over me. Felt nice and relaxing. So I mined away with a passion, really. And there was quite a bit of steel laying around by then, which was fortunate, because I needed quite a bit of steel. I finished all the mining, hauled in what I could once again. I decided to sit and have a beer. It had been a little while. Worked on a cooler, one in the kitchen, another in the bedroom. Then I decided to cook a little pemmican. After that, tossing horseshoes seemed like a good idea, and while doing so, a whole bunch of dates fell out of the sky. That'd be useful. Ready to eat food is always welcome. Plus I could make a ton more pemmican. I was starting to get quite the food supply once again. All kinds of different animal meats. I was feeling good about that. About as bad as I felt when it had all burned up last time. Grabbed those dates and brought them on inside and decided to move my bedroom stuff into my new bedroom. Be nice to sleep in my new home finally. I couldn't wake Hamlet, so I let him sleep where he was as I lay down in my new space. And it was just like I like it. Not fancy at all, just simple and small. I'm a fan of that. Upon waking, I moved Hamlet's bed right away, so he could go back to sleeping by me. And I brought all the old stuff from my bedroom in. Found uses for the heater and the light. Decided to make a little more pemmican. I was used to having a big stockpile. Then I ripped down all the walls and the old cooler in my old bedroom. Decided to do some mining so I could properly toss horseshoes, though there was still a tree in my way. Made some pemmican and decided to chop that tree down. Someone called me saying they were being chased at that point, but I still had my hands full, reworking my whole new home. Cooked for a while. Got some stuff hauled around so it wouldn't get deteriorated out on me. I had a ton of steel laying around outside, so I ran out and grabbed that too. It doesn't deteriorate, but I like to keep it close by so I don't have to run around to get it when I need it. Then I was off to bed. The house was almost done. I was feeling pretty good as I lay down with Hamlet for another good night's sleep in my new bedroom.